Hey everyone, Loomis here, and today's video I'm going to be covering the 5 biggest mistakes that I see people make in Apex Arena. With Apex Arena wrapping up in 4 weeks from now, I thought I'd just want to make a video to go over some things that people do that, are probably contributing to them losing more games than they should. And whatever your goal is in Apex, whether it's hit, Langrisser, hit gold 3, maybe even hit silver 3. I want to kind of cover some things that will definitely help you improve your Apex performance. So without further ado, let's get into this. So the first mistake I see people make is that they pick Liana first, especially when you're player 1. Now, Liana, a first pick is one of the, I see it happen all the time, and it's literally such a weak move. Quite simply, Liana can't win you a fight. She can enable you to win because, obviously her support kit is incredible. But her alone, you're not going to win. And, when you have an option like you could pick a Zerida, you could pick a Leonhardt, you could pick one of your tanks, those things will all help you potentially win a fight. Liana by herself is just not a good pick. And, that way, if you pick Liana first, that gives them the chance to ban all of your tanks, ban your top DPS dealers, and it really makes ban pick easier for your opponent as well, because if you first pick Liana, they suddenly don't have to care about any of your healers. So if you run 3 or 4 healers, you all of a sudden have now made your box so the first ban is already passed, so there's 14 units left in the box. You just picked Liana. Instead of having 13 units left to choose to ban, you now have only 9 or 10, because suddenly they don't have to worry about your healers anymore. You already picked one, so it really puts you behind the 8 ball when you pick Liana first, especially as player 1. Player 2, it's a little bit better because at least player 2 Liana is significantly stronger than player 1 Liana, but player 1 Liana don't pick Liana first, please. Now this leads me to my second mistake I see people make is actually very similar. It's first banning Liana, for a number of same reasons, that picking her bad is wrong. It lets your opponent really have full control over how they want to fight the battle. So, if they can pick any tank they want, they can pick any DPS they want. You're giving them significantly more options than you do by banning one of their tanks, or banning a Zerida, or whatever it is. The only exception to this is if they're running less than 4 healers. Then you can first ban a Liana, and then if they don't pick a healer first pick, then you can follow up and ban the rest of their healers. Now that's definitely a good ban pick strategy, but if they're running a 4 healer box, never first ban a Liana. Alright, so the third mistake I see people make is overextending. And this generally happens more as a player 2, but it can happen as a player 1. As you know, assuming no summons, assuming nothing different, the first player is always going to have the turn priority. And the issue you run into is that if you just kind of rush to the middle as P2, you might actually be setting yourself up poorly, because they can move first and they can take advantage of that. So what I see a lot of player 2s do is they barrel in, and then they get themselves into trouble, and they lose the match. Where if they stay back, potentially spread out, or just kind of do a little bit more of a passive stall type strategy, it's much more effective as a P2, especially because let's say hypothetically the match ended in a draw, the second player wins. So it actually is in your favor to play a little bit more defensively. Now that being said, whoever controls the middle has more power in the fight. But I think initially, a lot of player 2s need to play a little bit more passively. Where you see it happen with player 1 is that they'll use their summons badly. So let's say you have as a first play, you have a Liana, and you brought the Angel, and you summon the Sky Archer. Through summoning the Sky Archer, you actually give up turn priority, and the second player is going to move first the next turn. Now this isn't always a bad thing, because you can catch up the priority and do a double move at the end of the turn after you summon the Sky Archer, or whatever your summon is. But a lot of people will they'll do a normal first player approach, and they'll be very aggressive, and then they summon. And that's a problem because now you're letting the other player move first, and you've set yourself up badly, and you've really kind of given them an advantage there. So, and then the other place you see overextending is just like risky attacks in general. If you can't OHKO your opponent, don't dive in. Like, for example, like you see so many Leonhardts, your opponent will just teleport them in, and they don't kill anyone. You might as well. It's just bad because if you can't kill at least one unit, you just sent your Leonhardt in there. They're gonna be able to kill him, heal back up, and it's like it never happened, which is a huge problem. Someone, if you barrel your Zerida in and you use it to attack someone and they can't kill them because of last rites or whatever the reason is, now you've just lost your Zerida. So risky attacks, sometimes you're forced into a position where you need to choose a riskier attack, but generally speaking, it's not worth it. Don't try it. The fourth mistake I see people make is not picking a win condition. Now, matches are generally decided in ban pick. If you have a ban pick and your opponent has a good ban pick, you're going to need them to mess up strategically to win the fight. And that does happen. But a lot of times, if you have a bad ban pick, you really can't recover from that. You ultimately, with a PvP fight, you need a way to kill your opponent. And often I'll see people, they'll pick things, and it just makes absolutely no sense because they end up with a team that really can't kill you in general. Like, for example, I see a lot of people pick Bozel very early, and Bozel himself, he can't kill. Bozel's a support unit. He doesn't have any damage mods on anything. He has a very unique kit. He enables other units to, reach their potential. He can do annoying things like sleep or silence you. But, Bozel generally is not going to come out there and, single target attack and kill you. Definitely not at full health. So Bozel, if he's paired with a Zerida or a Galana or a Listel, like, sure, yeah, Bozel can be a great second pick. But often, people pick Bozel early, and it's like, okay, because if you pick a tank first and then you pick a Bozel, and it just doesn't, and there's no DPSs left in your box, so it's just easy to ban. You can really kind of back yourself into a corner. So I like picking Bozel. I'm picking on him a little bit here, but you need to make sure that you actually have a way to kill your opponent. People, one of the things that goes around a lot is that Leon is not super great in PvP. He's kind of pretty good, but at the end of the day, Leon packs a punch and he can kill something. So like Leon definitely still can be a win condition. It doesn't need to be a Zerida, it doesn't need to be a Leonhardt, but you just need enough offense to actually kill your opponent. And then the fifth mistake I see people make is miscounting squares. And you see this happen all the time. Whether it's a terrain penalty that you didn't foresee. The one I'm always guilty of is I always forget that Bernhardt is probably carrying a Kernbit or a Balanced Blade, and his AoE range is now massive. And that can definitely lose you fights. Just not counting your squares, forgetting your ranges, putting people in danger that they don't need to be. You can do every move perfectly and be doing really well in a fight, but if you slip up there, you'll lose the fight. So it's just something, it sounds simple, you hear people talk about it all the time, but you got to make sure that you count your squares right. And last but not least, I know I said there was only 5 mistakes, but an honorable mention, that is a little bit of a smaller one, but I thought deserves a mention as well, is moving Zerida too early. Or really first move. A lot of times when I fight against a Zerida, the person will move her first, which is the absolute worst thing you can do. It because you really want to move your single target major players last, because let's say your Zerida runs Breeze, and your opponent's moving towards you. If you move Zerida first and it procs Breeze, they're just gonna back up and spread out. But if you wait to move her last, they might put a couple people not within the 9 range, but not within the 7 range, but within a 9 range. And if you move Zerida last and then suddenly proc that Breeze, now they can't get everyone out, and you can potentially go in and snipe someone and get the advantage in the fight. This is something I see people do all the time. They'll move their Zeratul first, and it usually just ends up putting you in a bad position. So definitely move her last or close to last. Obviously it does depend on the context of the fight, but generally speaking, move her as late as possible. And any of your other big damage dealers, move them as late as possible too. You don't know what your opponent's going to proc. You don't know if they're going to get a healer with Tenios, and they're going to get a 3 mobility boost on like their Leon or something stupid. Then they can come in and snipe your Zeratul or your Listel or whoever. So you just don't know what's going to happen. Try to stack the deck in your favor so the RNG doesn't screw you over. All right, guys. So those were my 5 biggest mistakes I see in Apex, plus an honorable mention. If you guys enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate if you could hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more content like this. And as always, if there's any videos that you'd like to see me make, please let me know in the comments. And if you agree or disagree with anything I said in this video, also let me know in the comments. I'd be happy to discuss some of these things further with you guys. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.